Trump is polarizing. The one thing you can say about the Trump presidency is that it has been polarizing. And what's interesting, it's been polarizing not just on Main Street, but also on Wall Street. What does that mean for us, for the fund management industry, for the wealth generation industry? This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's November 2nd, 2020. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up roughly 6%. The market's up about 1.5%. For the year, the fund is up 187%. The market's up 3%. We're outperforming by 184%. If you put $100 in Orange Capital Partners at January 1st, 2020, you would have $287. The same in the S&P 500 would yield $103. Trump has been polarizing, of course, on the street, and this is not a political podcast, so I'm not going to go into the polarization on the street, but he's been also extremely polarizing on Wall Street. Look at the winners and the losers. There's clear winners and losers. The tech sector, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Apple, they're all big winners, big, multi-$100 billion of market cap was added, and others are losers, ExxonMobil, the Wall Street banks, the coal industry, the transportation industry, the car industry. Pretty much the old is dying and the new is growing. And there's a power law here, which is it's growing at a high clip in percentage, and it keeps growing. It keeps that exponential growth. So the differences are becoming more and more extreme. There's a couple of things that are interesting about this. First, of course, the reflection of Wall Street and Main Street. I think there is a relationship. This winner takes it all economy is, of course, also reflected in Main Street. That's why so many people are frustrated, because we have a power law. And by definition, in the power law, there's a small minority of people who grow an exponentially higher piece of the pie. And that makes other people very angry. So I think this is the Wall Street, Main Street. There's no dichotomy here. It's actually the same thing. It's just another way to look at it, a different picture. And in my view, of course, a very interesting picture from our perspective. At Orange Capital Partners, we haven't really expected that. I can't say we predicted this. We had a very different approach. As the listeners know, our mission is to generate wealth by investing in disruptive technologies with large impact. And that's why we focused on, in particular, Tesla and the CRISPR index. But we also, by definition, we're in the right place, because this is exactly where the power law kicks in. When you look for large value creation stocks, and assuming you find them, you will be in good company under a Trump presidency, because Trump is an extreme builder. He builds extreme opinions, extreme emotional reactions. He is the first social media president. Social media also by design is creating emotional extremes. So the whole society is becoming more and more extreme. And, this is obviously very interesting for philosophers and sociologists and anthropologists to see the relationship between social media, human behavior, the economy, and Wall Street and Main Street and politics. For us, we're just going to focus on the financial markets here. And the financial markets are showing us, these are facts. You have a massive outperformance of stocks like Amazon, Tesla, but not just those. Let's say, take Square is a good example. Square is a small startup, started in 2009 to take payments from organic food stands and things like that. Today, it has more market cap than Goldman Sachs, which is amazing if you think about it. It's almost in par with Morgan Stanley. So the extremes are getting more and more extreme, and it is our prediction that we will have those extremes continue. So we predict that particularly if Trump wins, we will have those extremes go much more extreme. So for the indices, for diversified people, that means you'll make some money. But of course, for the wealth generation industry, it means that just go and do your job. Find those concentrated bets that will generate the big wealth. And we at Orange Capital Partners do that by building on the principal stack. The principal stack is a combination of 4 books with a couple of principles per book. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, The Innovation Stack by Jim McKelvey, The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, and the whole thing is kind of wrapped up philosophically in The Beginning of Infinity, which I have to say I was a bit flattered and almost a little bit scared when I saw yesterday that Naval in his Ask Me Anything tweet, answered that his favorite book is The Beginning of Infinity. So it kind of validates our choice for Beginning of Infinity as part of our principle stack. But of course, it also takes away a little bit of our differentiation. But I am pretty sure that a lot of people that read that book don't immediately connect the dots and make it the part of their investment principle stack. We do recommend that. So for the listeners of this podcast, the purpose of this podcast is to give people a feel for how it feels like running a hedge fund. So go build your principle stack and then work very diligently. Always start with the principle stack whenever you look at a company. Whenever you analyze a company, make sure it fits into your principle stack. It's not necessary. It's necessary. It's not sufficient. So it's not going to guarantee you to make money, but it will absolutely give you the right principle basement for your investment. So when you're wrong, at least you can say, well, I was wrong for the right reasons, hence the name Not Even Wrong. Let's get back to the extreme polarization theme under Trump. So Trump is polarizing. I think that there is a couple of things to be said. Number one, he is a polarizing personality. Number two, the presidency by definition polarizes. I think number three, we are in a social media world where polarization is the name of the game much more than before. I would say it started with radio, then TV, now we have social media, we have the internet also. I think if you look at the history of the US presidential elections, actually it's interesting. We always had this, like the first, let's say Roosevelt was the first radio president, Kennedy the first TV president. Internet, I'm not so sure. I would say maybe Obama was the first Facebook president, because not necessarily because he used Facebook for his purposes, but he used the Facebook analytics and technology to win elections. And Trump, of course, is the first social media president. What does that really mean? Social media works, as Elon Musk has said, I think rightly so, it is amplifying our limbic system. So it amplifies this part of our nervous system, which is kind of the reptile, extreme reaction, emotion type system. Now, some people might think, and this is from the book The Righteous Mind, that maybe that is actually our thinking. Our thinking is the limbic system, and our rational thinking in the frontal cortex, the thinking that we all associate with humans, is only rationalizing what our limbic systems already made up their minds with, or our minds with, I'm sorry. So what that really means in a nutshell is that maybe Trump is just jumping on a bandwagon that has always been there and now is being amplified by social media. So Trump didn't invent anything here. He's just sort of the vehicle. It's kind of like the laws of physics. When you hit the stone, it's the laws of physics which affect you through the stone. So it's the same way here. The laws of neuroscience and the laws of human social behavior are just reflected to us through Trump. It's not necessarily that Trump is the one who's doing it. He's just reflecting it. So what I'm trying to say here is that we are living in an extreme society, and one manifestation of that is the stock market. We have extreme stock movements also, extreme in a sense that we have power laws in the stock market, a lot more than in the past. It was also like that in the past, but not this extreme. If you take the market cap gains of Amazon, Tesla, Google, Apple, Facebook also, but particularly those big ones, if you add them up, they are more than offsetting all the losses of all the other industries. Now, this has a couple of impacts. Number one, the indices are up. They're up about 50% over the last 4 years, so that's pretty good return for an index, particularly in a zero rate environment. What it also means is, of course, that you have this power law, and the power law distribution is that you have a very small fraction of the economy, of the actual working force, generating a massive amount of wealth, and everybody else is losing out, and not just not generating the wealth, but actually losing wealth. So that creates lots of tension. Now, for us at Orange Capital Partners, what does that mean? First of all, we have a concentrated bet on one of those stocks that we think will generate that extreme amount of wealth and be a beneficiary of the power law. We also have a bet on CRISPR. And to summarize that, we don't want the world to be in a situation where a few have everything and everybody else is losing out. But it looks like in an extreme world, the only way to get there, the only way to get to progress and to use David Deutsch's narrative, the only way to find new explanations and progress by using those new explanations and instantiate them into technology and get us progress, it is through extremes. It is through extreme diversity of thoughts and people and thinking. Also, 0 to 1 keeps preaching to us, be unique, be the monopoly of one, build your own thing. Jim McKelvey in Innovation Stack says innovation is not a choice, it's a necessity, which goes back to, if you are a monopolist of one, if you are the one that has to do something, if you're Elon Musk that has to decarbonize energy, there is no other way than to build an innovation stack. You can't just buy stuff off the shelf, etc. So all these things tie into the same thing, that we can only get this type of progress if we are extreme, if we polarize ourselves. And polarization means we have genetic polarization, we have educational polarization, geographic polarization, we have all kinds of polarizations. What it just means in plain English or in normal lingo is that we want to be different. We want to have an amplify our differences as much as we can. It yields to inequalities, but it also yields to progress. This is the problem. We cannot have progress if we're all equal. Equity is anti-progress. I can't show it mathematically, but there is a direct relationship between equity and progress, and it has been shown in communism, for example. If everybody has equal education, thinks the same way, if you're not allowed to express yourself, if you're not free, if you don't have that kind of freedoms, you can't express yourself, and therefore you will not have the ability to be progressive and find new explanations for existing problems and solve hard problems and all of that stuff. So to summarize, we believe that the polarization of society has amplified, has accelerated. We don't believe it's Trump who's done it, but he is the mirror of that. We believe that another 4 years of Trump will get that to more extremes. That's very good for us, at least in the first beginnings, because we believe that the stocks that we invest in will do extremely well. The risk is that the discrepancy between Wall Street and Main Street increases, and that is something we need to pay attention to. Also, COVID is moving society towards a more collectivist nature, so that we have to resist that. We cannot let COVID fight our tendency to be different and to express our freedoms, because expressing freedom is the ultimate source of progress and wealth. Thank you.